Darren Mougey spoke. Aaron Glenn spoke. Some interesting nuggets and a hint on the Jets free agency plans this offseason. Plus, we have a special guest to talk about the latest live from the NFL Combine. Boy Green Daily starts now.
I'm going to lose my gosh-darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Let's go!
Put your seatbelts on. Get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Paul Leston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcasts. So happy you guys are joining us this morning. It's a beautiful morning. We're in the middle of the NFL Combine activities, baby, even though technically speaking, of course, the NFL Combine drills don't even get started till Thursday. But there's all this other action with Aaron, Glenn, and Darren, Mougey, and everybody speaking all over the place, which is a lot of fun. By the way, right off the top rope, I see my buddy. Let me highlight him right off the top rope. MFC, Mother Effing Chew, gifting a Boy Green Coffee Club membership. Thank you, sir, very much. Let's hit it. I want to hear those chimes for the high heavens. There they are, baby. By the way, MFC, you're up to 13 raffle tickets in our contest. That is tied for fourth place in our top 5 leaderboard down below. That membership, by the way, went to... the Hamburger 2508. Welcome back, Hamburger. Great to have you back here in the chat. We'll be joined in a few minutes by a very special guest from Sumer Sports, a former college football player extraordinaire. We'll get into all that here, but first, let's get into some Mougey Glenn comments. We broke down some of them yesterday on Boy Green Meets Woody, but I want to reiterate the most important one, if you missed this, on the Breece Hall Jets situation. This was Darren Mougey answering a handful of questions at the podium yesterday about Breece Hall. Spoiler alert, he ain't going nowhere.
Optimistic that you can get something done with Breece before free agency, and if not, are the tags in the process an option?
Yeah, the tags are an option. Ideally, we'd find a way to get a deal done and keep Breece around. I think I've said that for the last year since I've got here. Breece is a good player. Want to find a way to keep him around. We've been going through that process and are still doing so. And, we have a week to find out, if we can't get to an agreement, which way we'll go with that tag. Yeah, we'll find a way to keep Breece here if we can't get a deal done.
Do you get the sense that he wants to be here long term?
I do get the sense that Breece wants to be here. We've had good conversations throughout the season, after the season, so just finding a way to do that.
There you go. That was the most impactful, I believe, comments from New York Jets general manager Darren Mougey yesterday. Was Breece Hall, well, buddy, you're not going anywhere. You are going to, at a minimum, get franchise tagged in some form or fashion, or perhaps a long-term deal can be struck. More on that in just a minute. I told you guys we'd be joined by a special guest. Sumer Sports, baby, is taking over. They're all over the NFL Combine. We're having them on all kinds of our shows. We're going to have Lindsey Rhodes later today on another program at 11 o'clock. It's going to be great. But let's bring in this guy, former college football player. He's the draft guy, one of the many at Sumer Sports. It's been a while since we've had him on the show, so let's break some bread. Let's bring him back. It's Sam Bruchhaus, baby.
There's none like breaking bread with the boys who watch the Jets. That's one of my favorite things to do. I think they have one of the most fascinating off seasons ahead of them, especially, frankly, had one of the most fascinating in terms of the front office seasons as well. So I'm happy to break it down.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining us today. This is going to be a lot of fun. And you just heard a little bit of that clip, and we'll play one more here where Darren Mougey, after he did the public presser where he's there with all the media, he did a one-on-one sit-down with Eric Allen, and he reiterated, and this is a big piece of the Jets offseason, is that the plan is to keep Breece Hall here for the long term. Let's go to the footage.
You have 24 players, I think, have expiring contracts, including Breece Hall. Where does it stand with Breece right now from your mindset?
We're in a good place with Breece. Like I've said since I've got here, I want to keep good players. Breece being one of those guys. Got a chance to know him throughout this year. Obviously a really good player, good person. We've been working to try and get to a long-term deal, keep him around. If we can't do so, by that tag deadline next week, we'll exercise one of those options just to make sure we keep him around and continue to work towards a deal. So feel good about where that's at.
That franchise tag deadline, of course, closes on Tuesday, March 3rd. So the Jets have another 6 days to make that decision. Sam, let me ask you this. A lot of opinions on this from the outside. The Jets' decision to keep Breece Hall in some form or fashion, at least 2026, potentially long-term. Do you agree or disagree with that decision?
I think you have to take a step back and look at where this team really is lacking. I think the one premium position that they're not super lacking at right now is the wide receiver one position, the tackle position. And when we have that many really key elements, you probably have to tackle them in the draft. And so I do think while they can attack the running back position in various other ways, there are a lot. It's kind of a filled up running back free agency period with guys like Travis Etienne from the Jaguars also being available. That also means that there's potential that the market could be moved down. And so I do think variably, if you're looking to solidify a position that is not a premium position, something like the transition tag is definitely in play for Breece Hall. And I think that when you really look at it, Breece Hall has shown an ability to maintain a level of receiving production that you can't really replace. Maybe you can find someone in the middle or late rounds to replace that. But I just think the needs in the draft are too abundant and too necessary to really say that, we're going to jump up and take a Jeremiah Love at 2, or we're going to really focus on a Jadarian Price in the 60s when you really need to reload most of a defense and you really need wide receiving talent as well.
I won't lie. I am my dad raised me a Notre Dame fan, so I got to see a lot of Jeremiah Love during his career. We went to South Bend for the very first time last year when they hosted Syracuse, and oh dear Lord, have mercy, that was a good one to go to.
That was an awesome game to go to.
Some people, I've heard from people on this, that sometimes when you go to a game like that, like, this stinks, like I want competitiveness. But there's something to, a homecoming where you're just beating the tar and it's a million touchdowns. We're sloshing beer and the stands are like, woohoo. And then you have the, at South Bend, every time there's a touchdown, you get all these young bucks, 100%. And then they start losing counts 60, 70. I'm like, oh, dear Lord, have mercy. So, you already know, Sam. That's exactly it. All the push-ups out there in the audience. I was like, so that was a lot of fun. So Clash of Beer and seeing all that. So I won't lie. I love Jeremiah Love. I love going to the Notre Dame gift shop. Me and my dad with the Jeremiah Love cutout. And you can complete the heart with Jeremiah Love. It's very touching. It's very close to my heart. But with what they're doing here with Breece Hall, I imagine, not going in those waters. So Sam, shoot me straight here. What does the running back class look like? Is it just those 2 Notre Dame running backs and then a bunch of other guys and Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love? Is this class better than people think it is? What say you, Sam?
I think by the way, I'm a Notre Dame alum. I got my master's in Notre Dame. So I love it. I love it down there in South Bend. You hit the backer afterwards. One of the best bars. I went to Tulane undergrad. I'm originally from Louisiana, so I do struggle to pick the boot or the backer as the quality college bar. But nonetheless, you look at this running back class and it's kind of a 3-pronged question mark here. And I think Jeremiah Love, the consensus is at the combine this week when I'm talking to these draft analysts. And what I like to do is kind of problem solve here. I'm a data scientist and the hay's already in the barn in terms of the data, other than you add the combine data as well, which if I had to rate it out of 10, I'd say it's about a 3 of 10 in terms of its importance. It has some importance, but it's not all the way there. You can check out my article about that on sumersports.com right now. But when it really comes down to it, I think it's Jeremiah Love not only is the top running back certified, but probably the top player in this draft at his position. I don't necessarily, as a data scientist, think that means you should draft him in the first round just because of positional value. But I do think he's probably the number 1 consensus big board player. If you were to ask me, I think that's what's going to end up happening, meaning that he is the best running back and he is the best running back as compared to the best quarterback, best whatever. Like I think he's the most likely to potentially make an all-pro of any person in the draft. Then you have Jadarian Price, who has played a lot. We don't believe in the data that he has the blue chip qualities that Jeremiah Love has, but he is basically a starter level projection all across the board. Now, when we're saying projection, there's definitely a distribution of that. Does that mean it's going to hit? Not necessarily. Then you go and look at guys like Emmett Johnson from Nebraska, who our scouts really like. You can go look at guys like Whittington from Oregon, Nick Singleton, who was a standout in 24, really, really, really struggled in 25. I think the combine's going to do a lot for him should he run a fast 40, potentially move him back up to his projection in 24. You know, the issue with the running back position is it's a context-dependent position, meaning that you kind of need a good offensive line to set you up, or at least you need a good play caller to get you in the right scheme. As a result, you can find guys like Ja'Cory Bill Krosky Merritt in the 7th round who all of a sudden are your running back one in camp, much less, you know, throughout the season, and is almost a 1,000-yard rusher as well. So the running back position, I believe, in any given year is a roll of the dice. But for the most part, we're sitting in a standpoint where there are a lot of options, some more expensive than others, particularly in free agency and particularly with Jeremiah Love. But you kind of fill the need in the aggregate by doing something like transition tagging Breece Hall and then going late round and trying to, you know, hit a home run with a short bat.
I like that. I like that strategy. I like that idea. But you tell me this, Sam. Okay, where the hell is Jeremiah Love going? You sing me all these sweet pleasantries. I'm like, ooh, that sounds nice on Jeremiah Love. But where is he going to go? Still top 10 though, right?
I think the Jeremiah Love zone probably starts at 3 or 4, frankly.
Ooh,
and here's the reason why I think that.
All right.
The approach that a lot of evaluation forward front offices take is that you have to get out of the top 15 picks with a certified blue chip player. The reason why, and this is data back to a certain degree, is that if you're going to find an all-pro, you're going to find them in the top 15 picks. And I think that's even true of running backs. You look at Jahmyr Gibbs, you look at Bijan Robinson, you look at some of these other guys. All of them did get selected. Saquon Barkley.
Christian McCaffrey, right?
Christian McCaffrey. All of them did get selected in top 15 picks. The problem with the running back position, however, doesn't matter to have an all-pro. The going back years, the Super Bowl champion did not have even remotely a highly paid running back other than Saquon Barkley last year. This year it was Kenneth Walker on his rookie deal. You got guys like LeGarrette Blount, if you want to go back, Leonard Fournette, who was on his second team and was kind of on his second legs. And so it just is like a real question of, is having a good running back actually key to having a winning team? I'm of the mind that, number one, we've seen no. Number two, they're also just not paid highly enough to take advantage of that locked rookie contract.
Come on, Sam. You got to stop hating on the running backs, man. As a former running back, I got a little bias, of course, but come on, man. The running backs, they need some more TLC. I hope we see some of that in free agency, baby. That would be great. Now, let me ask you this, Sam. There was another comment made by Darren Mougey, and you as a former player, maybe you could speak to this and see the importance, because we've seen a shift from Aaron Glenn. So we'll play the clip first, and then we'll explain it a little bit. But Darren Mougey gave a little bit of a hint about the free agency plan for the New York Jets. Let's play a little bit.
In terms of, the other 24 players, we'll keep an eye and monitor several of those guys. But I'm excited about the opportunity to add some veteran players to this team. We've got one of the younger rosters in the NFL right now. So I really believe we're going to be able to add some good veteran players in this free agency class that can inject some veteran experience and leadership onto this young team.
Can you give us?
We'll cut it off there. The Jets last year, Sam, at the end of final roster cuts, had the 6th youngest roster in football, 25.89 average age of the players on the roster. Heading into free agency next, in the coming weeks of March, the Jets have 5 players that are 30 or older. 3 of those 5 are set to be free agents, so they'll only have 2. And last year, AG pounded his chest and said, "Can't be afraid to play the youth." And he wanted all these young guys, get rid of all these older guys. You tell me, how important is veteran leadership in a locker room, Sam? You've been in locker rooms. I ask you that because, the Jets tried to go youthful last year. Well, that didn't work. They went 3-14. So they're like, all right, pendulum swinging the other way. Let's bring in some veterans here. Apparently, that is the plan for free agency. What's the difference between a veteran-laden locker room versus a young locker room?
I think the difference in my experience is almost like if you put the guardrails up at the bowling alley. Like you still got to bowl straight.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier to do when you have guys, particularly in a professional environment where you can have a mix of guys that are 32, 33, have 2 to 3 children, and have, businesses outside of sports. And then you also got like the 21-year-olds coming in hot. So when you're standing there, I would describe it as like putting the little gates up on the bowling lane. It's not going to necessarily mean, victories or a strike, but it is certainly a lot easier. The thing I will say, however, though, and this is my experience at Tulane, a lot of the leadership comes from the quarterback position. And the Jets just did not have a quarterback that they could trust in to just play snaps last year. A lot of injuries at the quarterback position, much less, performance problems. And my fortunes changed at Tulane when we got Michael Pratt, who was an NFL quarterback drafted in the 7th round, makes the practice squad with the Bucs, unfortunately ends up getting injured and didn't end up playing a ton. But the fortunes completely changed. And that was a young guy. He came in as a freshman and started starting. But he was just an excellent leader. He was someone who took mentorship from the older guys on the defensive side of the ball, the offensive line, and immediately gave it back to the team on the field with his effort, led by example, and then became the true leader who was able to lead Tulane through a really tough time in which a hurricane hit New Orleans. They go 2-11 or 2-10 because they're literally living in an abandoned hotel in Birmingham because there's nowhere for them to stay. Yeah. Then the next year they make it to the Cotton Bowl. So I will say that like veteran leadership is key, but it cannot go unsaid that the most important position in football typically needs to be that leader. And it's kind of a toss-up where the Jets could really go for that this year.
Yeah, so let's get into that beautiful segue. Sam, it's like you've done this before. Super Sports, Sam Bruchhaus joining us here on the Gosh Darn program here at Boy Green Daily, live at the NFL Combine, which we appreciate Sam carving out the time for us this morning. Sam, the Jets have a couple of different paths to go. Darren Mougey used the catchphrase, we're going to, turn over every stone, trade, free agency, draft, all over the place. Give it to me straight here. I love Fernando Mendoza. I would put a ring on it, but doesn't sound like that's going to be a possibility, Sam. Confirm if you believe that is also true, or if not, you want to keep our hopes alive. I'd appreciate that. Or is there another quarterback that you like? The Jets have 4 picks inside the top 44. Should they use one of those on a quarterback not named Fernando Mendoza that could be available?
Yeah, I think that there is a situation where you have to uncover every stone, basically. And I think we saw the Giants do a pretty good job of this last year, where they kind of trade back into the first round, take Jackson Dart a little bit above consensus, but they end up doing so without really using a ton of draft capital. They end up doing a pick swap for the most part at the end of the first round. And then they bring in a Jameis Winston and they bring in a Russell Wilson and they just try to figure it out. And I think to a certain degree, they at least stabilized with the idea that we're going to go into year 2 with Jackson Dart, and everyone feels pretty comfortable about that. I think that needs to be the Jets' perspective. I do think that it would be a little bit of a reach to use something like that second first round pick on a Ty Simpson or on another quarterback. I think that you're going to want to wait a little bit later, maybe the 2nd or 3rd round, solidly on day 2 to take a swing at a quarterback. But I'm never going to criticize a swing for a quarterback. If you look at Tyler Shuck last year, he was a guy that did not necessarily spike in our data, but he did have a couple of items. He was really good at avoiding sacks, and he had accuracy over the middle. And he was able to use that to a certain degree. Actually took quite a few sacks this year in a Saints jersey, but he added a little element of scrambling to his game. And you add that into a mix, and all of a sudden you can kind of get a little bit of spunk. And when it really comes down to it, you got to have a young quarterback on this team, period. They don't necessarily have it right now. So I do think it's going to be a mix of free agency and the draft. Who it will be in free agency, I think, will be really interesting. I think there's guys out there like Marcus Mariota, who's an unrestricted free agent, who could potentially come in and at least stabilize. I really liked what he did with Cliff Kingsbury. He's not a certified starter by any means. Potentially you could look into some type of trade or a younger guy. I don't think the money that it's going to take to get Malik Willis in will necessarily be worth it. I think it'll be similar to the Justin Fields acquisition last year, but maybe you can spend a little less money, get Trey Lance in, and not worry as much in that form or facet. I do think it's a tricky year in particular, but I think you try to uncover every stone at cost and also keep your options open for next year as well in the draft.
All right, get me in this mindset, because a lot of Jet fans bring up what you just said with the Giants example. So the Giants had the 3rd overall pick. They're like, hey, we're taking Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
But apparently in their Giants draft series, we saw that they love Jackson Dart. And so much so that Dable apparently was like, yeah, let's take him at 3, baby. But that's like the mindset that I'm trying to get my brain around. So they loved him a lot, but not enough to take him at 3. So they risked, you better know your P's and Q's, because if you're waiting in the draft, you better have a pretty good knowledge of what everyone else thinks about Jackson Dart, and that you pick the appropriate moment to trade up. Because to the trade up that you're talking about, they didn't give up a future first. They didn't do what the Falcons did, moving up a future first to go back and get James Pierce Jr. So they were able to do it without giving up a future first and get their quarterback. And hey, Giant fans should be elated that I believe, I don't know if we're unquestioned franchise quarterback, but you got to feel really good about where Jackson Dart's at. How does that happen? How can you, like the Jets have 2 first-round picks. It's a perfect example. They have 2 and they have 16. 2 seems pretty crazy for Ty Simpson potentially, but if you like him at 16, what's the difference? Again, I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying from a mentality standpoint, if you'd be willing to take him at 16, we have no idea. But if they are, why would you risk it? Because between 2 and 16, there's a lot of teams that could potentially just say, hey, we're going to take that quarterback.
So this is an excellent question. And, the VP of analytics, I don't know if that's his actual title, but Sean Clement at the Jets is a former Sumer Sports VP, hired me on to Sumer Sports. And I have a lot of friends in that analytics group. And here's what they're going to do. A great video to look at is the Panthers draft day video last year, where Sumer Sports alum, former VP as well, Eric Eager, broke down to a certain degree with Brant Tillis their approach. We have a pretty good idea of what any team will do, because news travels fast in the 32, right? And that trickles out to the media, it trickles out to Peter Schrager and all these other excellent beat reporters. And so in the aggregate, we can kind of start building a bell curve of where we think these guys are going to go based on the hundreds and hundreds of team reporters and national reporters that are out there digging deep and trying to serve the public and telling, giving an early idea of what may happen. You also look at betting odds. You look at now Poly Market and stuff like that. You can get a sense of where these guys are going to go. So there is an element of where, maybe it's Sean, maybe it's someone else will be telling Mougey and AG, hey, we probably got 8 out of 10 times Simpson's probably still on the board at 16. 9 out of 10 times. Now I'm just like making up a number here.
Yeah, you're right.
But like, and so you're kind of at the blackjack table to a certain degree, but there will be an analytical, history-proven idea of where a quarterback who is currently at the consensus big board here, who, the Jets have a grade of this, will, and there's X teams that have X needs ahead of them, that typically this player will be drafted by a certain pick. And they'll have simulations, probably, frankly, done in March, that they'll have tested time and time again in a live mock environment in the Jets facility with people selecting. So I think I'm not going to call it a solved problem, but I do think this is something that Darren Mougey can really trust the analytics on. And as a result, really hold their water the way that Joe Shane did. And to a certain degree, the way that the Cleveland Browns did as well, waiting to get Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd, waiting to get Shedeur Sanders in the 5th. Right. And I think that's a database, process-based mentality that, given the trades that they made halfway through the season, I believe they will take that same analytical approach.
All right, Sam, tell me about him. So I have it up here. Sean Clement of the New York Jets. He is their director of football analytics and strategy. He's at the top of their analytical food pyramid. Brian Shields has been there for a long time as well. What can you tell us about Sean?
Yeah, Sean is an excellent boss, an extremely smart guy, and one of the godfathers of modern analytics. Like we had guys in the 80s and 90s who started looking at what we call expected points added and really breaking down the play-by-play data. Sean is an innovator, particularly in the realm of special teams and draft research. And I respect him immensely. I wouldn't be here talking to you if it wasn't for Sean. And I really trust that he's going to do the right things for the Jets.
So, Sam, what you're saying is you're a future acquisition of the New York Jets. He's going to bring you on board, baby.
I'm a future supporter of Sumer Sports, and I will be
Smart man.
talking my butt off. I don't
Yeah.
know if I have the stomach to be a team guy, but I
Yeah.
can tell you I can certainly yap to a microphone all the time.
Well, that's good news for us. We got Sam Bruchhaus here, baby, on Boy Green Daily. Thank you to we have a couple hundred people in the room watching the show. Thank you so much. Like the video, hit subscribe, no matter where you're at. Let's get into some of these Jets decisions, and also I want to go back to this. You mentioned this earlier. I wanted to circle back to this at an appropriate time. Just in, now feels like an appropriate time. You brought up the NFL Combine with the hay being in the barn with a lot of what you guys do at Sumer Sports, and now we have this Combine, which is the sexy event. I know I'm going to have my keister parked in front of either this chair with a projector going of the Combine or over there in the man cave watching this thing Thursday to Sunday. Rich Eisen, Daniel Jeremiah, they're walking us through all these players, and my eyes are going to be glued to this television, trying to absorb as much information as humanly possible. For you guys that put so much work in before this point, and there's a lot of people that are coming to this point, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, they're like, hey, I've only heard a little bit of whatever the college football season is, and now I'm receiving all this information. For you guys where that's clearly not the case, how do you factor in what's about to happen here at the Combine? Because expert in talking in front of the mic, Sam Bruchhaus, is that a lot of people that also share that talent of speaking to the mic are going to be having wide-ranging things coming out of this Combine. Whoa, this guy has surged to this. Whoa, this guy's a loser. He totally destroyed it. Now he falls here. How do you sort of weigh what's about to happen here over the coming days?
Yeah, so I think you have to set the baseline of how much to put in. And like I said, at maximum, the Combine is a 3 of 10 in how much importance you should put into it. It's not the most predictive thing of future success. That's the bad news. But the good thing is we have a large pool of data because, Deion Sanders in the 90s was running 40s and stuff like that. So as a result, we can compare going back and forth and get a sense of how athletic or apples to apples we're doing this, especially because you're running on a similar track. Obviously, the grass has changed from time to time in Lucas Oil, but you're running in Indy. It's a very similar, setup. For the most part, the schedule is the same, so forth and so on. So it kind of is a controlled experiment. What really we like to look at is 2 core positions, and the idea is that the closer to the line of scrimmage, the harder to evaluate the counting stats, and the better the Combine thus becomes. And so you really look at something like the offensive tackle position. You're going to get a max correlation around that 3 of 10. You're going to get, for the most part, around a 2.5 of 10 if you're looking at across, stuff like the 3 cone, stuff like the short shuttle. You're going to be able to get a good historical comparison of who an athlete is. And I think frankly, that's a big reason why the Jets now have Olu Fashanu and have Armand Membu on the team, because those are 2 guys that performed well in the Combine. When you knock out that 2.5 out of 10, they really did a great job of that. Then you add in the other elements, and I think it ends up being a pretty safe thing to say draft athletic tackles. I think that's a safe thing to say in the National Football League. And I think as a result, the premier kind of position to watch every single drill is the tackle position. You can go look at other individual drills. You look at the quarterback broad jump. If you're looking for those mid-round late guys, that shows a good level of athleticism. Guys like Cam Newton, Jalen Hurts, Andrew Luck, Geno Smith, Justin Herbert have done good at that. You really go look at the tight end position as well. The tight end 40 is actually one of the highest correlations. That's getting more in that kind of 3.5 out of 10 range if I really had to rank it. And you want really good tight ends: Evan Ingram, Darren Waller, Jared Cook, Noah Fant, George Kittle, Mike Gesicki, Jimmy Graham, all fast 40 guys. So there are drills that can give you a good sense of what's going on with a player, but it's never a great sense is what I would say.
Fair enough. Should that affect my viewing experience at all, Sam?
No, I don't think it should affect your viewing experience, because this is a first look at these players, a sense of how they move, a sense of how they run. And also, look, as an analytics guy, particularly in football and as a former player, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we can tell you everything. We just try to fill the cup up enough to drink it. Like that's where we're trying to get. And so there are elements that we don't necessarily have the technology to figure out yet. One of the things that comes to mind is I was a guy who in the offseason always trained with track guys. They talk about shin angles and arm angles and, the way that the foot bends in order to really run. We don't necessarily have great technology yet to track that down to the nth degree. And that's where you bring in these scouts and evaluators to really get a sense of injury prevention, about the way that they run their gait. And then you also have the position-specific drills. We found that probably the least important position, ironically, for the combine drills for the combine athletic test is the wide receiver position, despite you having the John Ross, Xavier Worthy type guys who are putting up fast numbers. What we have found, however, though, is that tracking data actually is kind of the juice when it comes to the wide receivers. So when you're watching wide receivers run the gauntlet and really doing at least somewhat of a kind of, the mind is a little clouded trying to catch balls left, right, and they're running full speed. That full speed actually does kind of align with the tracking data that we see on the field during the game that we think is quite important as well. So there are the position drills, and most importantly, and I wrote this in my article, this is bar none the most important part of the combine, is those player interviews that are happening with the media, getting a sense of how they can handle a little bit of stress here in Indy. It's cold out here in Indy. They're getting woken up early, and they're also getting poked and prodded in the medicals as well. And that information is absolutely key to teams as well. So the combine, I think, is an excellent event. While it doesn't necessarily have the juice in the data per se, it provides excellent historical data in a way that you can't really find. It also provides a lot of context on the side, and that's why I think it's kind of the pinnacle of the draft season altogether.
You brought up the two Jets tackles earlier, Olu Muiwa, Armand. Is that the best young tackle tandem in the NFL, Sam Bruchhaus?
I think it very well could be, and I think you probably give it another year to really see how it plays out. But I'm a big believer in what's called the two tackle theory, and that's if you look at good offenses along this run that we've had in a couple years, they have two good tackles. And I think the Chargers were able to prove that to a certain degree 2 years ago. And in essence, the absence of their two tackles, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater, also proved that to a certain degree. You look at the Eagles, you got Mailata and you got Lane Johnson. They make a Super Bowl run. You look at the Vikings, who have been able to kind of keep it moving and keep wins coming in despite who the quarterback is. They have Darisaw and they have Brian O'Neill. You look at the Buccaneers, who turned Baker Mayfield into a really good guy. Why is Baker Mayfield now looking good? Because he has Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke, two excellent tackles as well. The Saints have taken this path as well. Kelvin Banks and Fuaga, all of a sudden Tyler Shuck starts playing well. I think the keys are in the ignition to really start that for the Jets as well, as Olu Fashanu has rounded into a really good player, and Armand Mimbu was a breakout as well.
Vroom, vroom, baby. Vroom, vroom. Let's go. All right, Sam, I've buried the lead far enough. The Jets have the number 2 overall pick. Everyone keeps telling me, you tell me if this is different, that ultimately the number 2 overall pick is going to come down to 3 of the front 7 players in no particular order. Miami's Ruben Bain. You have Ohio State's Arvell Reese, and then you have David Bailey out of Texas Tech. Do you believe that's the 3 they're deciding between? And if so, who do you prefer of the 3 at 2 for the Jets?
I'm of the mind that is who they should be deciding between. The edge rushing position is, as of now, the premium position. You have Michael Parsons at $47 million. You have Myles Garrett up there as well. Sure. And then you got Jamar Chase a little lower from there. So right now, the edge rushing position is the premium position. So in the case of taking advantage of the rookie contract, it's certifiably the best outside the quarterback position. So that's lock number 1. Number 2, you got 3 guys that people think are blue chip or borderline blue chip, can definitely be quality edge rusher at the next level. That can be taken at 2. Arvell Reese, more of the talent guy. We are not super confident that he'll be a great edge rusher, but it's just because he didn't play a lot of edge rushing. We are pretty confident he's going to be a good athlete. And I think that's a real key. You got Ruben Bain, who's not necessarily the great athlete, but can play across the defensive line and was the production guy. It's kind of the opposite of Arvell Reese. You got David Bailey somewhere in the middle, where we believe he's a good speed rusher. He was able to do that over his time as at Texas Tech and at Stanford prior to that. However, we're not sure how good of a run stuffer he is. So you kind of have a spectrum to go through. Typically what I like to see here is, potentially if a team falls in love, can you trade from 2 to 4? Can you trade from 2 to 5, where a team may get a little excited about Jeremiah Love? You can kind of get your pick of the litter of the 3 if you have them all graded the same. That being said, here's what I'm hearing. I don't necessarily think this is the best. I like Ruben Bain the most out of all of them. I'm hearing that Arvell Reese is the best talent in this draft. You know, I talked about Jeremiah Love being the best at his position in the draft. I've heard that Arvell Reese is the best potential talent in this draft. So I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being the number 2 pick. That's what I'm hearing on Radio Row from various media members and people who are close to the situation.
Okay, much appreciated. Here's another one that the Jets have to decide at. It's left guard. We talked about Olu Mougey. You feel great about him. Armand Membo, feel pretty good about him. Joe Tippmann, he sort of settled in at right guard. The Jets have Josh Myers at center, and we'll see if the Jets think they can upgrade there. And then at left guard, John Simpson or Elijah Vera Tucker. Both are set to be free agents for the New York Jets. Now, I don't know how much we're supposed to read into any of these press conferences and some of the clips we played earlier, but Darren Mougey was pretty lukewarm. He gave us nothing on, hey, John Simpson, ABT, what are you thinking? Yep, those guys are both alive, and yes, they are. And didn't really give us much details at all, which some people have said, ooh, maybe the Jets are just going to hit the eject button and start fresh. They don't sign John Simpson or AVT. How do you feel, Sam Bruchhaus, analytical mastermind of Sumer Sports? How do you feel about the Jets taking a certain Penn State guard at a certain position? Because in Daniel Jeremiah recent mock draft, he had the Jets dipping their toes in the guard waters with the 16th overall pick. Your thoughts are what on that possibility?
I think there's a couple items to this. You've seen the teams who have been able to build themselves out of a hole do it with guards who are actually coming in free agency. You can get excellent guards in free agency. And I think the best example of this is the Carolina Panthers, who have Taylor Moton on the right side, who's the veteran. Then you get Ike Ekwonu, who unfortunately has gotten hurt, but had kind of I wouldn't say a standout season, but had a season where he showed he could be a quality starter last year. How did they do it in the trenches? They did it through free agency. Now, the Vikings tried to do this last year to a certain degree. They take Donovan Jackson the back half of the first round, not necessarily with the premium capital that the Jets now have. And they were able to do it to a certain degree. You know, they deal with injured players. I'm of the mind that it should probably be a mix. I would kind of stay away from the guard position in this draft, in the middle of this draft in particular, for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think there's going to be tackles and swing tackles that are available in the 60s and 70s that are really, really good. A guy like Jennings Dunker is a standout for us. He's a guy who could potentially swing to tackle and provide excellent tackle depth, but also slot in as a guard very early on in his career, potentially start second or third round pick, a day 2 guy certified. But we have him as a guy who can win quickly at a blue chip level. We have him a guy who can sustain quickly. And I really liked what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl. It's subjectively with my own kind of football playing eyes as well. So I do think guard can be addressed later in the draft. I do think you probably want to continue attacking those premium positions. Wide receivers, a need for the Jets here. You got various other positions, cornerback, all across the board where you really need guys, and they should be available at that second pick. I think they should target that a little bit more than necessarily the guard position.
Again, we've got over 300 people in the room. Appreciate that. For folks that are watching the show live right now, make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe. We got 50 likes for Pete's sake, but over 120 people watching on YouTube. Hit that gosh darn like button, people out in the audience. Now, you know, Sam, Jet fans, we're driving ourselves crazy with these mock drafts. We got a 2nd overall pick, 16th overall pick. There's a lot of combinations. We're going through the buffet line. All right, let's try a quarterback at 2 and a wide receiver at 16. All right, now let's try a pass rusher at 2 and this. And we're trying all these different flavors. And I like it, maybe not so much. So I ask you, Sam, what is the ideal plan? Because if you're watching the draft and Mel Kiper Jr. comes on the screen, and then on the bottom little ticker, it says the needs for the team, the needs for the Jets, everything is what the Jets have. So now when you look at 2 or 16, when you need so much, there is an unlimited amount of Doctor Strange's heads jumping around. How many possibilities could be here at 2 or 16 for the Jets? What is the play? Let's say it's front 7 player at 2. Then what do you complement 16? Do you double dip on defense with how terrible they were? You give a little offensive help to whoever the hell's playing quarterback potentially? What's the path here, Sam? What's the right combo? What at 2 positionally, and then what at 16 positionally do you think is the right porridge here for the Jets?
So I think 2 is going to be edge rusher. And I think that's the right move. 16 is substantially more interesting, and here's why. Let's read into what we've seen from Darren Mougey thus far. Number one, we know that he is a data-based guy, given that he took a view of the situation and took quite a bunch of draft capital for Sauce Gardner and Q Williams. Now, the Sauce Gardner trade obviously looks pretty good. I thought Q Williams ended up being an all-pro, but like, how much was that really helping you at the time? Not a ton.
Sure.
So you end up getting that draft capital. So I would not really be shocked if we see 16, get traded back into 20 or 25 if a team starts getting a little hot and heavy, particularly if a team starts getting a little hot and heavy over a quarterback. That's a good place to take advantage of a team. We saw the Browns be able to do that with Travis Hunter. We saw the Rams be able to do that with James Pierce, as you mentioned earlier on the show. So I actually would not be shocked if the trade-heavy approach that Darren Mougey has done during the season is actually extended to that 16th pick as well. That being said, there's a multitude of ways that you could go. You could go start looking at like defensive tackle, a guy like Caleb Banks. I think the wide receivers are really going to have a run in between around 9 and 20. If you like Jordan Tyson, if you like Carnell Tate, if you like Mekhi Lemon, I think those are all good options. And I think really when you kind of view that selection, I think you can probably end up getting quality draft capital next year when people like the quarterbacks a little bit more. And while also not necessarily losing a ton of value if you trade back kind of in the second part of the round where there will be additional quality talent, particularly at positions like the linebacker position, some of those less premium positions that feel a little bit more palatable in the back half of the first round rather than in the middle.
If you're trading back for the Jets, is the motivation potentially to get a 4th first-round pick in 2027? Back 26 years ago, look at these young strapping lads, the 2000 NFL draft where the Jets had, count them, 4 first-round picks from left to right, tight end Anthony Beck, pass rusher John Abraham, pass rusher Sean Ellis, and then we are Marshall. There he is, Chad Pennington, baby. Those were the 4 first-round picks. Would that be the motivation for the Jets? Is see if they can, get a team that's gung-ho, as you said, for a certain position, say, hey, we don't need anything right now. How about a 2027 first, buddy? And just keep adding to that war chest?
I think that's a good move. And we've seen teams like the Ravens and Eagles, and even back in the day, the Patriots do this time and time and time and time again. And I think having studied the draft deeply for a half decade, if not more at this point, you come to the conclusion that it's really hard to get the draft correct. You have a very limited number of picks, and football is a very difficult game. The only way to do it is to pick a lot and to try to develop those picks with excellent coaching. And I think they're trying to do that by installing Aaron Glenn. And I think the second option is take that approach like the Eagles do, like the Ravens do, like the Chargers now do, and just try to pick a bunch of times kind of in the back half of the first round, second round, and really take advantage of all that. You think about what the Ravens did 2 years ago where they had 2 picks. They used them on less premium positions, but because of that, they were able to hit on guys like Tyler Linderbaum and Kyle Hamilton. And I think that's really the approach that I think Darren Mougey wants to do. That's clear he wants to do it from a perspective of the way that he kind of handled the Sauce and Q elements. And I think that would not be shocking to me. That being said, 16 will be a quality pick. You're right outside of that range that you could potentially get an all-pro in. There's guys on kind of the consensus mock draft right now that I like in that range. You look at a guy like Keldrick Falk, Jermon McCoy, Mekhi Lemon, Mansour Delane, all positions of need, all places where they could fall well to the Jets, and I'd be okay with them taking a selection at that point as well.
As a massive draft nerd, when I found out, it's above my pay grade of how the hell that all happened, but apparently the Raiders' upset of the Chiefs late in the season didn't affect the number 1 overall pick, but it opened the door for the Jets to have the first pick of the second round. And like I said, as a draft nerd, when you get to reset the board, you do the first round Thursday night, you reset, you sleep on it, and the Jets can have those phone calls blowing up all day long with that 33rd overall pick. How valuable of an asset is that, Sam Bruchhaus? Whether, it seems like every year we see what we perceive as first-round players slipping to that point, so Jets can add another quality player or sell that off to the highest bidder and get a treasure chest of picks because obviously the Jets have a lot of needs. How valuable is that selection?
I think it's as valuable as pick like 28 per se. And just because there's a break in the day doesn't necessarily mean that, on the curve of how the draft goes, that there's a massive gap in between those secondary picks in the first round and those first picks in the second round. Moreover, it may actually be a little bit more valuable because you have time. From a game theory perspective, you can start to build demand over the course of the night and the day. Sleepless night, making calls. All of a sudden, people start getting a little antsy. Is Ty Simpson still on the board? Does someone want to jump up and get him? Is there another quarterback that people like? Are there tackles still available? Max Ionacre from Arizona State. Does someone want to get in that market as well? Or is there a run on tackles, so forth and so on? And so I think the mix of knowing that the curve has already started to flatten after the top 15 picks. So the value is much the same as the end of the first round. And also that that you got the time to negotiate something provides a lot of value for that pick.
Yeah, no question about it, which is really exciting. Before we're going to open up the phone lines, we'll have some of these animals call in and ask you some questions straight to your face here, Sam Bruchhaus. But before we get there, we had Lindsay Rhodes on a couple weeks ago. It was probably around the Super Bowl, and she was promoting The Evaluation, the baby of Sumer Sports, where you guys have had many Jets, former NFL general managers, Mike McCagnon, John Idzik. We're in the middle of that series. Episodes are dropping as we're going through this process on a week-to-week basis here. Sam, where was your seat in all of this for The Evaluation? What can you tell our fans about it if they haven't heard about it? Again, it's available on the Sumer Sports YouTube channel. I'll throw that link up here in just a second. So, Sam, what can you tell us about this really cool draft series? Because, man, as again, I've said it a few times on the show, I am an absolute fan of the draft, and I loved when this series, was sort of announced. I was like, oh man, this is revving my engine.
Quite literally, my seat was to the left because as our scouts were discussing this and having the discussions that scouts have in draft meetings in February and March, they bring the analytics guys in, and the analytics guys state their process and they state the core values of these players that we have seen on the field. In the statistics. And that's quite literally where I was sitting. We called it the weatherman set. So I was almost like cutting to the weatherman, cutting to Jim Cantori or to Al Roker, which was pretty fun. But like you mentioned, our goal in this draft was to bring people into the early draft discussions. A lot of people don't really understand that draft meetings, for the most part, have already been conducted by these teams. You start getting around the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, and the scouts are coming back in town and they're discussing what they found during the season. And really the combine and the pro days are really just maybe tweaking a spot or two. The big boards are pretty much, for the most part, already set. We wanted to give a sense of what that looked like early on in the draft process. So we got guys, you mentioned Mike McCagnon, John Idzik, guys who were general managers of the Jets and have been in that seat sharing stories about their time in New York and as well as how they would evaluate these players. We got Mike Mayock back in the draft community. Man, look, you step on the set. He is a guy who has been doing it for years. He's like the Michael Jordan of the draft community. I immediately felt like I was Kobe and I had to raise my game when Kobe talks about those stories at the All-Star game where he felt like he had to match Michael Jordan's intensity. That was certainly how I felt. It's an awesome show, and I really love the discussions that were happening. You can't hear them elsewhere. Where you can hear them is Sumer Sports, SUME Sports, SUMER Sports on YouTube.
There he is. Let me throw it up on the screen. Subscribe now to youtube.com/@ Sumer Sports, SUMER Sports. And again, it's just this easy because I just did it live right now here on the show. If you go over to that YouTube handle on your screen and you're on the main homepage, go to the playlist tab. Then you will see The Evaluation, all caps, and all the flexing that's going on here. Marshall, Falk, Eli Manning. You guys are bringing out the big guns, which, again, love Marshall Falk, one of my favorites. And that's amazing. And you guys, and again, this is only the first couple episodes here of the series. A lot more episodes to come, hearing from, again, every single chair that exists. Big E, wrestling legend, of course, WWE guy. I mean, a lot of energy there.
Yeah, it cannot be stated enough that Big E brings the energy. He like, I'm a huge wrestling fan, by the way. I'm from the deep South. My folks grew up watching Mid-South wrestling, Junkyard Dog, Ric Flair, et cetera, et cetera. And so I came up in that kind of culture. And so when I got a chance to work with Big E, a lot of people don't realize it. Big E's about 5'10", 5'11". Here's a guy who can squat like 600 or 700 pounds. Like it is nuts. And he is huge, but like he has a great presence and he understands ball. I see in the comments, Big E, Iowa Hawkeye legend. Here's a guy who played for Kirk Ferentz. He understands the game deeply. He understands how to rock and roll with all these scouts. He's seen it all before, and he brings the energy, brings the power. Certified. That's his catchphrase, and he certainly does that as well. That's my guy. Huge shout out to him. He did an excellent job, and it was really fun to work with him.
Yeah, I am a massive wrestling fan as well, and I pay attention even to everything that's going on right now and what happened back in the day. And I will be honest, Big E, he is in his new role in wrestling. He is sort of a post-game host. So after these events are happening, he's on the panel and he's interviewing people and things of that nature. But when I heard, it sort of caught me off guard when Lindsay was like, when all the promotional material is coming out, it's like, wait, Big E wrestling? He is going to be in these football waters. I said, wow, this is going to be very interesting. And I've been very impressed. It shouldn't be that surprising. He's a very talented guy, but man, that's amazing. So again, guys, for our audio only listeners on the podcast as well, again, they subscribe now to youtube.com/@Sumer Sports. Again, SUMER Sports. And you guys can check out the full series. That is in the playlist tab there on their YouTube channel. Don't forget to hit subscribe as well and spread the gospel of this wonderful evaluation series. All right, Sam, without further ado, we're going to play a quick hep timeout. Get a drink, if you will, and we'll be right back. And the phone calls will be open. All kinds of draft questions and God knows what else, Sam, is about to hit us. We'll be right back after this.
1, 2, 3. Whoa! Boy Green, fucking daily, fucking daily, fucking daily. Talking Jets football, man. All right. Boy Green daily, fucking daily, fucking daily. The New York Jets football club. Offense, defense, special teams, watch Jets football with Boy Green. Everyone, J-E-T-S, Jets. Boy Green, fucking daily, fucking daily, fucking daily. Talking Jets football, man. All right. Boy Green, fucking daily, fucking daily, fucking daily. Yeah. Nice. Offense, defense, special teams, watch Jets football with Boy Green. J-E-T-S, Jets. Let's go!
That brings me back the scenes from our live tailgate last year where 75 Jet fans all came together to watch a game here with Boy Green and enjoyed some beer and great food and everything else. We're going to be hosting that every year moving forward. So, Sam, we're going to have to get you to one of those tailgates, baby, and start cracking some brewskis and having a good old time talking football and enjoying some food, the other important F in the world of football. So, all right, Sam, without further ado, are you ready for the fans?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Well, I just brought up that tailgate, baby. This was the guy that was behind the scenes cooking all the wonderful food and executive chef extraordinaire. This is Chef Kevin Gilbert from the Cloverleaf Tavern. Let's bring him on the program. Chef, good morning, sir.
Hey, BG, Sam, good morning to y'all, man. Shout out to the Coffee Club members. Number one Austrian Jet fan, man. Keep doing your thing. Johnny Boy, Indy Jets. Yo, get better, get stronger, man. We thinking about y'all. Sam, great job, man, with breaking all that stuff down. I didn't expect really to come on and really talk draft like that because of what happened yesterday at the Combine with Mougey and AG. But I really, I guess I want to pick your brain because I feel strongly about Carson Beck. All right. Now, for myself, when you look and analyze this stuff, like between Beck and Simpson, I think there's more value for the Jets if we draft Carson Beck because I feel like he'll be there in the later rounds. When you look at his stats from last year, Beck has better stats than Simpson. That's factual. You can't debate that. When you talk about the height, talk about the weight, Carson Beck is 6'4", 220. Simpson's 6'2", and he's under 210 pounds. Like, Beck seems like he's the Frank Wright mold of a quarterback. Stands in the pocket. Like, he played And this is also factual too. Beck played better than Simpson against Indiana during the the bowl series and all that. So why Simpson's stock is higher than Beck. I don't really care. I'm not gonna press that issue. But where do you see Beck at this point being drafted?
Yeah, I think Carson Beck is a guy who could potentially rise up. I think there's two items that people are a little afraid of with Carson Beck. The first is he's just not going to be a guy who scrambles a lot. And I think that there is a belief in the NFL community right now that I am frankly a big believer in as well, that in order to kind of set a baseline for yourself, you have to be able to have a level of mobility. If you go to sumersports.com right now, we have our 2026 NFL draft guide. He has what we would call a red scramble rate, meaning that he scrambles at the lowest quartile, less than the 25th percentile of anyone we've seen in our historical database. Here's the good news, though, Chef. He does not get sacked at all. Only a 2.1% sack rate. You compare that to guys like Bo Nix. You compare that to guys like Tyler Shuck. That does show that he can kind of move to the next level. And I think that really hurt the Jets last year, is having their quarterbacks kind of run around and mess around and get into sacks. I think that's not something that Carson Beck will do. The other big problem with him, and there is a discussion of whether this is really that big of a problem, is he throws an extremely catchable ball. The problem is it kind of goes the same way for the defense as well. We've seen him be able to have a high completion percentage, but a lot of those incompletions end up being turnovers. Those are the two things I'm a little worried about him with. But I do think that there's a real shot that he could sneak into day 2, 3rd round, 4th round. I think it would not be unreasonable to see him go there. Typically, though, in the middle rounds, we've seen this happen in particular with similar quarterbacks, at least in terms of their profile or the amount that they played, like Spencer Rattler, get pushed back into more of the 5th round just because of the way the draft mechanics kind of work out on day 2. I wouldn't actually be shocked. I actually view them like you. I view Ty Simpson and Carson Beck a lot closer. I just think they are back into the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds than necessarily the 1st and 2nd rounds.
Yeah, I see that. And then it's also too, like, I don't really care too much about the combine, like what somebody really runs and how they throw and all that kind of stuff. I'm somebody who believes more in the tape than them, running in shorts and all that kind of stuff. So and then there's also the pressure situations too. Like, yeah, I get what you're saying with Beck, with the touchdowns and the iron tees and all that. Beck in that championship game, he did throw one pick, but that was towards the end of the game when he was like kind of forcing it or whatever. But majority of the game, I thought he did a pretty good job. Where on the opposite side, Simpson, he did not look good, man. Like, Indiana had his lunch money, they had his dinner money, they had his girlfriend, they had everything. They made Simpson look pathetic. So for that, I really feel like it should have hurt his stock. But for some reason, because there's only really one quarterback in this draft that's like a plug and play kind of cat, I guess Simpson's getting the luck of the draw, knowing that Moore went back to college too. Like, it's kind of what it is. I really just don't want the Jets to be like, hey, we got to get Simpson, we got to reach, because with us right now, we have so many holes to fill with that D line, which I'm with you with Ruben Bain, man. I think he's a game wrecker, man. Like, put him on any side. I see the moves, man. Stopping the run, the pass. I don't care what you say about his arm length or whatever. Like, just watch the footage and see him being an impact kind of player. But then it's also the linebackers. We got to address that, secondary, and then we need weapons. One thing the Jets did last year that drove me nuts, man, and I've been getting on people about it, was that Arian Smith pick. Like, he's basically we drafted a gunner. All right, like that hurts, man. That hurts. But I do feel good, at least with Mougey, like how he stood up there in the press conference, like he was answering questions. Like, he made me feel good about Breece. I know all those Breece haters, that when they ain't really, they backpedaling right now. They can't really say too much. The Jeremiah Love cats, like, BG, you can't. How many times more are you gonna be playing that Love video?
I don't know. Like, come on, Sam. You don't love this? Let me put this. Will make Sam feel a lot better. Look at this. Look at this. Watch this, Sam. Okay, you're seeing this. Come on, Sam. How do you not see this? And you love, right, Sam? Come on.
No, look, and I think that's the reality of what I'm trying to say here is, like, I do think he's a certified great player. I've watched him since he began, and you just go watch the USC game and you realize he's a great player. First play of the game, a linebacker kind of follows him on a route. They're running a screen on the backside. He throws him on the ground, really should have been flagged for no reason. Ball didn't even come remotely near him. Next play, 87 yards. Next play, counter look, cuts it back, runs through two defenders, touchdown. Like, he's a guy who can certifiably play. I just think the running back position is so tenuous at the NFL level. It's just not something that we've seen work. I mean, let's look at Ashton Genty. Pete Carroll's no longer there.
Sure.
Look at Bijan Robinson, Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and back to Arthur Smith, no longer there. Look at guys like Leonard Fournette. That coaching staff got fired. It's just not Brian Daboll with Saquon Barkley also got fired. There's just so many kind of steps that you kind of have to go through in order to see success there. And even though it can be a good pick and Bijan Robinson can be an all-pro, a borderline offense player of the year, it just, for whatever reason, doesn't translate into wins.
That Love video is so funny because BG picked the one where it looks like the Jets defense last year with the poor tackling, wrapping up high, guys just lunging with their shoulders. BG is just, really very selective. Does an amazing job of just getting the right clips to make certain people look a little bit better than they actually are. Breece is my guy. Love ain't going to have the same impact as Breece coming into this season. Now with Frank Wright, now with this offensive line where, hey, man, I'm happy if Tucker and Simpson both go, because that just opens up more cap space for us, man, to really solidify that. And then we get the weapons, and guess what? Now we're cooking a little bit. I'm feeling good. And then with AG, we got time to talk about a lot. I know you probably got other calls and whatnot, but with AG, I think, he kind of put his feet to the fire, man. I feel him. He put the pressure on himself, talking about the superpowers and him, being the defensive guy, wanting to call the shots. For me, I'm like, well, if this is your superpower, why didn't you use it last year when you saw us drowning? Why didn't you use it then? Why are you saving your powers? All right, well, here it is. Because if we start off bad, if his superpowers ain't working, then what is he going to fall back on?
There may be something said. I will say this, Chef. You know what? If you say something's cooking, you have the expertise, and that is in fact cooking. So, Chef, we will discuss. Thank you so much for your call, and you're the best, buddy.
I appreciate y'all. Sam, great job, man. Have a good one, y'all.
Much
there
love.
He is. Chef Kevin Gilbert gracing us with his presence. Let's get into that part of it, Sam. AG is calling the plays. It had been long rumored, now official. He'll be calling plays in the Jets defense this year. And he did call it his superpower at the Combine press conference yesterday. And the Jets defense and all that was terrible last year. And that made people feel a certain type of way. I don't know what the numbers are now, but Eric Allen, he's the senior reporter for the Jets, and he had both Aaron Glenn and Darren Mougey at his one-on-one table after the press conferences, and he said the Jets as a team and their media department did an internal study. How many head coaches are calling plays in the National Football League? Okay, we'll play a little game of trivia, Sam. How many maybe you'll just know this and you'll slap me around here, but how many head coaches, and I believe this is not counting all these new head coaches, I believe it was last year their studies, how many head coaches of the 32 do you think called plays last year?
Now, are we counting offensive plays as
yes,
well?
Yes, offense and defense. Either way, just calling plays. Yep.
I mean, I think the only ones that weren't were Harbaugh, 2X, Tomlin, Vrabel, and I think that's it, right?
So here again, this is the Jets numbers, so we'll say what it is. They said 25 of the 32 call plays, and to me, that's just because when AG decided to call plays, and it officially came out yesterday, but it had long been rumored, a lot of fans are like, boy, we didn't think he could handle his normal responsibilities. Now he's going to call plays geez. And I said, I don't know, man. I think a lot of coaches call plays in the league, and they seem to be okay. And then I heard that number from EA yesterday, 25 of the 32. I'm like, seems like most of them figure it out. Is that a big level of concern when you're balancing calling plays and also doing the game? Because, Robert Saleh also spoke when he got the Titans job. When he was with the Jets, he did not call plays. he gets the Titans job. He said, that was a mistake. I should have called plays. It gets me involved in the game. And AG made a lot of those similar comments yesterday. It gets him in the trenches. It gets him talking to the mic, and he just feels more in the game when he's literally in the game calling the defense. So what do you make of that decision from AG?
Yeah, I think there's two ways to approach it. Number one, game management is paramount for a head coach. And if the game management slips as a result of the play calling, then I think we may have to rethink this. That being said, like I said, the Jets have an excellent analytics organization. I trust in them. I know most of them personally. I think that this is a situation where they'll be in the ear of AG. And again, like AG comes from that Lions, Sean Payton, Dan Campbell tree where they're aggressive anyway. So like, as long as the game management stuff does not slip, I don't really see any problem with AG calling plays and being involved on that defensive side of the game. I do think, like, I'm a big believer that, a CEO head coach is a little bit more valuable. The problem is the best CEO head coaches are the best coaches. So it's a little bit of selection bias. And I do think that there's an element with the offensive play caller in particular where you don't want to have to be replacing an offense or defensive play caller every single year. And so I think that brings value as well. That being said, I think if AG is able to recreate some of the stuff and some of the effort and some of the heart that his Lions defense was, and that those Saints defenses were when he was the kind of associate head coach, defensive backs coach, et cetera, I think it'll look good for the Jets if he can recreate that stuff.
We can only hope. But let me ask you, before we go back to the phone lines, and thank you for everyone who's called into the show. We'll get back to it. There's a guy who's supposed to be, by all accounts, thrown at the combine. That's Drew Aller out of Penn State. He had that nasty broken ankle last year. Again, he was on the invite list, so I assume he's going to throw coming up on Saturday. How important is it for a guy like that, who before this college football season was played, he was considered this top 5 pick, top 10 pick kind of guy with all his talent. He breaks his ankle and doesn't get to complete a season. He runs out of eligibility, so he comes into the draft. He was super talented. A lot of people were really high on him. And now you have this injury thing. How big is this combine performance? Or is that, again, goes back to your analysis of whether we underrate or overrate certain things in the combine? How important is it to see Drew Aller running around, throwing it out there, going through the drills, and what you believe his draft stock is?
So I think that should it affect Drew Aller's draft stock? Not necessarily, but I think he's a guy who could actually jump as a result of his athleticism. And here's why. He had a 10.8% scramble rate when he was playing last year, and that was above average. And moreover, when he is pressured, he scrambles at a quite high rate, in the 75th percentile and up, 33.9% of the time as he scrambles. So he is a guy who tries to use his athleticism a lot. So at 6'5", 235, if he comes in and has an excellent combine, I think teams may believe in him more. Do I think that's validated by the data? No, but it's definitely something that could help his draft stock out a little bit.
Do you have guys, Sam, that you would pound I know you're Sumer Sports, you're not on a team, but that you pound you've gone through this process and you're an analytics guy and there's numbers, but there has to be, there's going to be a little bit of, like that in your chest. You're like, you know what? I've looked at it. This is my guy. I am convinced that this guy is going to hit it. My example is this. Before COVID, I used to cover all the Syracuse football pro days here in town. And, I go through all these cycles of players and I get to interview them after, watch them run through all their stuff at the pro day. And then there was this linebacker and his name was Zaire Franklin. And he was here at Syracuse. And I talked to him. I watched his whole career. No one asked me this. I asked myself this on the radio. So I went to the pro day, then came and did my radio show. And I said, if I had to bet my career on a guy just making it, I'm going to bet it on Zaire Franklin. And he ends up being the 235th overall pick in the 7th round. The Jets, the only reason I know that is the Jets traded that pick to the Colts. The Colts ended up taking Zaire Franklin, Ziggy Smalls, and now he's turned his career into this beautiful thing. He's a team captain and everything. And I was like, that's my guy. And thank God I didn't actually bet my career on it. I mean, if I did, it would have been very well. But I'm just glad that I haven't made a habit of doing that. So I turn that to you, Sam. Is there someone that you're just pounding the table for? Any round, any position, one guy, multiple guys that you think that this guy is going to be a hit?
Yeah, I think at the top of the draft, it's Spencer Fano out of Utah. Ooh, I think this is a guy who was utilized in a extremely diverse and exotic run game and showed that he can do a lot. And we live in a world right now where Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater and all these athletic tackles really make a big difference. People are concerned about his pass pro. From an analytical perspective, a lot of the pass pro kind of comes down to the quarterback and his ability to negate sacks, such as what we've seen Bo Nix do. I mentioned Tyler Shuck. Patrick Mahomes is excellent at doing this. Josh Allen's excellent at doing this, so forth and so on. So I think sacks are a quarterback stat. And so I think if you can bring in a young tackle who can really block, Spencer Fano, I think, has proven that. And as a result, I think at the top of the draft, that's a guy who I'm really interested in. You start to go kind of down the list. Grayson Holden, defensive tackle, Oklahoma. That's a guy who I think is just going to be a game wrecker. A little stouter of a guy. He reminds me a little bit of those Chargers, Rams defensive tackles, Poona Ford, Tier Tart, some of that. A little stouter of a guy, but I think he's excellent. He pops in our data really well as well. And another guy that I want to put on people's radar, particularly at the wide receiver position, I think is relevant to the Jets, is Skylar Bell out of UConn. Here's a guy who we thought had excellent hands. We thought he was excellent after the catch. He maintained 35% or up target share during his time at UConn. He's a true target earner. And I think if put in the right situation, he could potentially continue doing that at the next level.
Oh, baby. Okay, that's what I was looking for, Sam. Your guys. And you gave me answers to the questions. All right, let's go back to the phone lines here. This is someone that is there around somewhere. I don't know if he's off camera. I don't know where he is. He's somewhere near the NFL Combine. He's a big fan of the show. Let's go to Mr. Legend Famous Fulton joining us here on the show.
Well, good morning, Paul. Good morning, Mr. Sam.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
I'm fantastic. Okay. Thank you for joining.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about Michael Pittman? I know he's going to try to get a contract or anything.
Yeah, so I did hear this, Sam, that there's been some rumors that the Colts will franchise tag potentially Alec Pierce. He ain't going nowhere, but there's ripple effects when you make business decisions, and I've heard some people say that perhaps that could make Michael Pittman shake free in a cut or trade situation. Is there any, interest in Michael Pittman? He sort of had a drop-off the last 2 years. The numbers aren't quite what they have been for him. You could, question some quarterback play potentially for that lack of production there. Are you a Michael Pittman guy, Sam Bruchhaus?
So the wide receiver position, I think, is the hardest, maybe other than the tackle position, to get through free agency trades, et cetera, et cetera. And as a result, if a wide receiver does become available, it's either because an absolutely tragic contract dispute or because the player has just fallen off a little bit. And I think if you're looking at Colts wide receivers, I'd be more shocked if a guy like Alec Pierce wouldn't catch the tag, or if you're like looking for a guy like Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce did something that was immensely difficult. He maintained a high level of target share with an extremely high average depth of target. We've basically only seen two guys do that in the last 5 years, him and Christian Watson. And he has a much better bill of health than Christian Watson. If we're looking at indie wide receivers, I like Alec Pierce a lot more than Michael Pittman.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Famous Fulton?
Well, I'm going to be auditioning for Annie the Musical this year.
Oh, congratulations. Nice job, man.
I'm going to take the role as the rooster, or if I want to do ensemble. So,
cock-a-doodle-doo. That's what I'm talking about,
yes.
Mr. Famous Fulton. Some rooster action. Nice. Congratulations, buddy.
Yep. So I've been practicing, so.
All right, excellent. We can't wait to hear it. When you're ready, at a proper time, you can let us know when you're ready for that, Mr. Fulton.
I think I am ready for it.
Oh,
I can do a little snippet of it.
Oh, all right. Sam, grab your popcorn. Here we go. Mr. Famous Fulton, please. Yeah.
I remember the way our certain mother would sit us and croon us her lullaby. You load the dice. That's all I got.
All right, wow. Okay. Well, Mr. Famous Fulton, I can understand why you're, in fact, legend and famous. It makes a lot of sense. Yep. Excellent work, my friend.
Sure is. Yep. And then we got our basketball sectionals coming up on the 8th of March.
Okay.
And I've got a bowling tournament on the 7th of March.
Busy man. Good Lord.
Right. Yeah. Bowling, singing, this or that. Wow. Mr. Famous. So I don't know how you have time to call into the show, but we're very appreciative, good sir. So thank you for carving out the time, and good luck on all your endeavors. Yes.
If we win our sectional,
All right.
we'll go to state. If we don't, we'll go home and try next year.
Okay, that's the spirit. That's the way.
Yep.
Put it all out there, and then if it hits, phenomenal. But again, it's not about the results; it's about the process, Mr. Famous Fulton. You put in that
Nick
work.
Saban guy, BG over here.
You like that, huh? So there you go,
Yep.
Mr. Famous Fulton. Thank you so much for
Sam,
joining us.
I'd like to have you on my show sometime.
Oh, okay.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There he is, Mr. Famous Fulton. Wow. Okay, very talented. Thank you for joining us here on the program. All right, we got a super chat coming in for you, Sam. Sam Bruchhaus. Every time we get a super chat, we hear from my daughter, Zariah Luna. Zariah?
Wow.
Indeed. All right, NY Jets fandom, thanks for the $2 super chat. What does Sam think of Cole Payton NFL comparison? Everyone's talking about this North Dakota State quarterback here. Sam?
So if you want a great idea of what the scouts think of Cole Payton, go watch episode 1 of the evaluation. We have our quarterback expert breaking him down, and he stood in the face of Mike Mayock, longtime NFL Network analyst and former general manager of the Oakland/Vegas Raiders, and said, I would take Cole Payton as high as 10. Do I agree with that as a data scientist? I don't know. I don't necessarily think so.
Right.
However, here's what I can tell you. At the FCS level, he was an absolutely elite scrambler. And prior to his starting days, he was used in kind of a gadget role a la Taysom Hill. So I think if you're looking at a kind of NFL comparison, you're going to lock in on a guy like Taysom Hill. And frankly, I think that's probably the 80th to 90th percentile outcome for him, is a guy who can kind of start half of a season. You consider him as a guy who you're comfortable starting at the quarterback position, but moreover, he's bringing more in an athletic role. And then I think the 100th percentile would be, I mean, he's standing there at 6'2", 6'3", 230, 240. It would be like a Jalen Hurts type guy. I think that's the absolute best option for him. A little bit of Jackson Dart in there as well. That being said, he is a lefty. We haven't really seen any great lefty quarterbacks since, I don't want to say Tua, but Tua is a left-handed quarterback.
Michael Vick, Steve Young. We're going a little deep in the bag for some of those, but
So you do have limited left-handed quarterbacks, but I think at the absolute ceiling, it's a guy like kind of at his most athletic Jalen Hurts, a hefty guy who's hard to bring down, won't necessarily kill you through the air, but has the ability to kind of get the ball in the right spots. And I think otherwise he's going to be a guy who's more of a gadget player who's used in the run. I think that's probably the median outcome for Cole Payton.
Thank you for that super chat, NY Jets fandom. You guys could squeeze in a couple more before we let Sam go here. Sam, I'm curious when you guys go through your process. I asked this to someone else earlier this week. So when you guys go through your process and you're like, here's our board, and you guys, and maybe you're going to have an example of whoever this player is, but you guys go through your process and you say, the 10th best player in this NFL draft is blah. And then you look at the consensus board and people say, that's the 25th guy. So do you guys take pride and say, no, we believe in what we did, he's the 10th best guy? Or do you, when you analyze it and compare to the consensus and you guys are far off in one direction or another, you guys are super high and the others are low, or vice versa, and other people are high and you guys are low? How do you handle that? What do you guys do when those situations arise? Does it make you look yourself in the mirror? What happens there?
So I think there's 3 elements to this. The first is, if I'm a scout, or you're a Sumer scout, you're Mike Mayock or you're Mike McCagnon or you're some of these other guys, your job is to evaluate the player on your merits based off your experience and to document what is going on. That's your 2 charges. And so as a result, you kind of take a glance and you don't want to have the consensus kind of mess you up. You want the variance of the scout's opinion. And so if you're just a sheer scout film evaluator, that variance is okay. If you're a data scientist like me, we're trying to find the most predictive elements. Now, you can only get about 45% there, I'd say, with just sheer data. And so you mix those 2 together and you can get a sense. And if you're still really far away from the consensus, then there's probably something that you're not having in the mix yet. Because what we found is that when you add in the consensus, typically the picks that hit are within about a 10 to 15 pick range of the consensus. And frankly, that's why you see teams like the Eagles do so well, because they don't reach on players.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, whenever you're building models and whenever you're a data scientist, it's your job to pull in all the outside data, because like Wikipedia, people say don't use Wikipedia for information, but that's realistically, it ends up being a pretty good approximation with what happened in, the War of 1812 or something like that. Like you can get a good idea of what happened in the Battle of New Orleans or whatever. That's kind of the approach, the wisdom of the crowds for the draft as well. So it's my job to take those insights from guys like Dane Brugler, who I think is an extremely smart draft.
Oh, yes.
DJ, Daniel Jeremiah, so forth and so on, and bring them in as well. And I think that paints a really full picture of where guys should be drafted, how good they are, and whatever variance you add in is from whatever proprietary data that you have and from your scout's opinion as well. So that's typically how it works out. And I think there's certain guys each year who kind of pop up in the draft. Like last year, we were a little lower on a guy like Malachi Starks, who ended up having a pretty good year. And we were a little higher on a guy like Tedero McMillan, who we thought should solidly go in the top 10. He ends up going in the top 10, having an offensive rookie of the year type year. So that's kind of how it kind of comes together. We were also really high on a guy named Arondé Gadsden, who ended up being a good tight end.
Syracuse boy from around here. Love that.
Exactly. So it comes and goes every year, but that's kind of how you start building your board. And there's a really cool element that I've learned in analytics as well, which I kind of touched on it, but it's the horizontal big board, right? And the idea that you need to be drafting based off of what you expect to pay these guys on their second contract. And so as a result, that pushes up the guys like, some of the quarterbacks, some of the wide receivers so far and so on. And it at least informs you about what value you could potentially get from these players. You compare that to the players on your team. I think that's kind of how you build your board as well.
All right, Sam, first off, I want to congratulate you for all the money you just made our fans, because the over-under was set at 1/2 for mentions of the Battle of 1812. Thank you for the participation in that level of this show. Thank you, Sam. Sam, before we let you go, and thank you for being so generous with your time here, Sumer Sports. We've said it a lot. We will continue to say it because we have a lot of your wonderful Sumer Sports team that's joining me on a variety of my digital platforms this week, which I'm very happy. I love doing this partnership with you guys. What is Sumer Sports? Someone's like, Sumer Sports, what the hell is that? What the hell is going on here? Your pitch of what Sumer Sports is and the value you believe it brings is what?
Yeah, at our core, we're an innovative football company. And what that implies is we are bringing in the experts. We're bringing in the scouts who have done it. And then we're comparing that to the innovative data using tracking data and using high-level models a la ChatGPT to bring that together. So you can check us out in a myriad of places, but our job is to bring the best data to the people. You can find data that you cannot find anywhere else, literally anywhere else, for free. Sumersports.com draft guide. If you want to work with NFL data in a very easy environment, you can go to sumersports.com/sumerbrain. It's like ChatGPT for football, and you can have access to all our proprietary NFL data there. If you're more of a podcast guy and you just want to listen along, you can go to Sumer Sports' YouTube page, subscribe to the Sumer Sports Show with me and Lindsay, or watch the evaluation with all of our general managers, insights from me and our guy, Big E. And look, me and Lindsay Rhodes, both big wrestling fans. So if you're a wrestling fan as well, we support that as well. We support a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you do. So again, if I do this to Lindsay later in the show when she's talking about wrestling, I start doing the Lindsay Rhodes. Is she gonna sort of? Yeah, is that gonna like? Oh, hey, there you go. Do you think I'm gonna get any reaction to that?
So we're an interesting pairing for. She was recently gotten into the WWE for two reasons. Okay. Her son has gotten into it, and she's friends with the visionary, the architect, Seth Rollins. Wow. I myself grew up as a huge CM Punk fan.
Oh, I love CM Punk. Come on,
me
man.
and Lindsay beef over this because
yeah.
my guy, Chicago-made Chick Magnet Punk, I almost got into a massive wreck in a blizzard in the Midwest driving to Chicago from South Bend, Indiana, in a blizzard to see the original MJF Chicago-made Punk matchup in Wintrust Arena. One of the best days of my life. Solo mission for me. Got a meatball sub. Got a little view of my guy CM Punk, but as a result, me and Lindsay have beef because she is a Seth Rollins guy. Yeah. And look, I do enjoy watching him. I can't hate, but if I had to pick a side, I'm going with my guy Phil Brooks, CM Punk, the guy who, frankly, has straight edge says I'm better than you, and he's just better than everyone else. He's the champ right now, and he is absolutely my guy. AEW, WWE, I'm supporting CM Punk.
Yeah, he's the best in the world. So, okay, I was going to ask another question, but now I already know what to do. So I'm going to have Lindsay Rhodes live on an 11 o'clock show. And the first thing I'm going to tell her is, hey, by the way, Sam wanted me to deliver a special message. She's like, oh, my God, what is it? And I'm going to be like, Seth Rollins sucks. CM Punk is the man. He's the best in the world. And we'll see what her reaction is at 11 o'clock.
I'm looking forward to seeing this.
Okay, that's going to be great. Sam, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy all the NFL Combine coverage. Again, we can't wait to stay tuned. Again, youtube.com/@SumerSports for your show with Lindsay, of course. And, of course, the evaluation, which is over in the evaluation playlist on that YouTube channel. Sam, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank y'all so much, and thank you to the crowd for chiming in.
There you go. Beautiful. Sam Bruchhaus, baby, here on the program. I want to thank everybody for doing this. This was a ton of fun. Thanks for jumping on. I see we have a super chat and a few more comments. I'll get to those before we wrap up the show. Thank you, guys. Shout out to Sumer Sports, by the way, for partnering up with me. I've done some work with them before. Shout out to Matt Stopsky, part of their PR team. And excellent. We've had some super fun conversations, and I'm very appreciative of you guys engaging, calling in, asking questions. And again, we will have another member of Sumer Sports, formerly of the NFL Network. You should know her well. Lindsay Rhodes will be joining us live at 11 o'clock on the MC Show digital channel. That show will also, of course, be streaming here, talking all things NFL Combine. So you guys will have another opportunity to get involved and to do so. And I hope you guys do take full advantage of that here on the program. All right, let's get a couple of other comments in here. So we got a super chat from my boy Del Ray Doc. You know, hickory dickory dock. I have an Andrew Dice Clay joke I could say, but
Wow.
would be wildly inappropriate, so I will choose not to. But Delray Doc, every time I see that, I want to hickory dickory dock. My pop, if he's watching the show, he knows what I'm about to say. But let's get this $5 super chat in. Thank you so much, buddy. Keeping one's job as head coach after a 3-14 record bad season is a pretty neat superpower. Do you agree? We are saved, Go Jets. I was going to bring this up earlier, but I didn't want to digress. I knew we had Sam for, relatively speaking, a limited amount of time. He was able to join us for 90 minutes, so I appreciate that from Sam. I get why a lot of fans are going to be, I explained this on the Boy Green Meets Woody show. I'll explain it again here. I get why a lot of fans are miffed by a lot of things. AG going 3-14 last year, keeping his job. A lot of people are not pleased with that whatsoever. The fact that he called his play calling a superpower and he wants to go back to it. I imagine how that missed a lot of fans. And then as Chef Kevin Gilbert said, whoa, if that was your superpower, why didn't you help out the team last year? Okay. And I think it was, I don't have the clip. It's on my Twitter, so you guys can go check it out. But AG was basically asked, a few things. Why did you do this? Why did you do this? And the first thing he was asked is, why are you calling plays? And AG said, I made a mistake last year. I hired Steve Wilkes. I wanted him to run the operation. Let me rephrase this. AG said the reason he didn't call plays initially last year from the beginning, not talking about middle of the season, which I'll get into in a second, but why he didn't do it at the beginning of the season and say, hey, this is what I want to do, is he said he wanted to be a head coach. He was a first-time head coach, and he didn't use this word, but he didn't want to be overwhelmed. He didn't want to manage the game and also call plays and then find out, oh, geez, my butter is spread too thin on this toast. Yikes, I don't want to do this. So he thought that the best path was to delegate that task to an experienced guy in Steve Wilkes. I will just say this before we go any further. The process makes sense. You're a first-time head coach. You've never been a head coach before. There's no how-to guide on how to be a head coach. So AG thought the best act was to delegate, be a CEO coach, be an overall coach, say, hey, I'm going to trust people to do this. And obviously that went horrifically. So as we were going through the season, AG realized, she said, you know what, I think I can not only manage the game, but also call plays. And people will then ask, well, why didn't he do it last year? Here is my simple answer. And again, fans are not going to like this answer I'm going to give, but I just try to give you guys the truth. I believe the reason why. So Steve Wilkes was fired with 3 games left in the season. Why didn't AG call the last 3 games? Well, I think this is why. We talked about the hay being in the barn for a different reason there from Sam Bruchhaus. The Jets were fucked. When there's 3 weeks left in the season, you can't change scheme. You can't change personnel. You have very limited choice. You just sort of have to ride the season out. It's over. It is what it is. The season is what it is. If AG would have stepped up to the plate to call plays, not Chris Harris, AG called the plays for the final 3 weeks of the season, it was only mostly bad things that could happen, because I think there was a couple possibilities. Let's say AG steps in with 3 weeks left to go, and he's awesome, and the Jets defense dramatically improved in those 3 weeks. That's probably unlikely, but let's just say that happened, right? The response from the fan base would have been, AG, why didn't you take it over sooner if you're such a genius? So even if it worked out, AG would have caught heat. Let's go door number 2. Let's say he steps in and it sucks just as bad as Wilkes. A lot of people said, I thought you were hired because of your defensive expertise. You stink. Which, again, more likely result is it would have continued to stink, because there's not much you can change with 3 weeks left to go. It is what it is. So I think AG viewed it as a lose-lose situation. We're already missing the playoffs. We're already screwed here on the season. If I step in to call plays, I'm doing it with very little time. He has to, again, there's a game every week. He doesn't have months to prepare for this. So I think AG realized at the end of the year that he wants to call plays, and he let some lackey, with all due respect, Chris Harris, call the plays for the last couple of weeks, let him take the bullets, and then the offseason make the decision to call plays, and then have as much time to prepare for this as possible. That's why first off, I think AG calling the plays is the right choice. Because if it flops, AG is going to get fired. And if AG gets fired, he knows that he did everything in his power to help. If you hire another guy like Wink Martindale and he calls the plays and it sucks, AG is getting fired. And then forever, AG is going to wonder in the middle of the night, what if I would have called plays? What would have been different? Because the team would have been different. All this stuff would have been different because there was Steve Wilkes' defense last year. AG doesn't have to wonder about that. If he's calling plays, so it's not if anymore, he is calling plays. If he calls plays and goes horribly wrong, he gets fired. And he can say to himself, I tried everything I could. And there it is. If it works, AG is going to get so much credit for turning it around. He's going to get so much credit if he calls defense this year, as he is, and it's great, and there's great results. He's going to get a ton of credit. So I agree with the decision for him to call plays. It makes sense why he didn't jump into the middle of the mix last year. That wouldn't have been the best position to randomly try to start calling plays, as a lot of people didn't even think he was managing the game great. I think that would have been a poor choice, and I think that would have taken a lot of wind out of the sails. So, again, it's not what fans want to hear. Fans don't want to hear that, the season was screwed, so he wasn't going to jump in and try to save it because, fans don't want to hear that, of course. But that's the uncomfortable truth, folks, of how I think everything went down from that perspective. Honestly, that's what I think happened. By the way, Del Rey Doc, I appreciate it. And you now have 3 raffle tickets to our contest this month, so I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat coming in. But I believe that's the truth. That I do. MFC, let's get a member shout out here on the program.
Wow.
The chat with like a Talon Green eval, please. Sorry that we ran out of time from my boy Sam Bruchhaus on the Talon Green, but I can give you what I can on Talon Green as a prospect. This kid is 23 years old. He'll turn 24 in the middle of his rookie season in the National Football League. He's a very talented kid. He spent a couple years at Boise State, last 2 years at Arkansas. He was the freshman of the year in the Mountain West in 2022 for Boise State, Frisco Bowl MVP in 2022, Liberty Bowl MVP in 2024. He's 6'6", 224 pounds. I mean, this guy is a lot of man, and he's very intriguing. Now, if you look at his NFL Combine profile, and Lance Zierlein does a really good job with these on NFL.com, so you guys can sort of get a sense of all these players that are going to be at the Combine. He got a prospect grade of 6.15, which means it's a good backup with the potential to eventually develop into a starter. His production score was a 68. His athleticism score is an 87. His total score is a 74th. That ranks 7th at the quarterback position. Here was Lance Zierlein's write-up on him. He's got rare size and athleticism for the position. He's long, rangy, dual-threat quarterback with upside. Green's ability to generate explosive plays as a runner and a passer help keep his offense afloat. In-game consistency has been a sticking point, though. He has a long, unorthodox delivery and tends to baby too many throws. He could generate enough velocity and distance to stress defenses over the second and third levels. Green puts the ball in harm's way at an alarming rate, which will translate to great trouble against more talented defenders and more complicated coverages at the NFL level. His ability to win with his legs on called runs or pocket breakdowns pushes his value beyond the passing profile. Green's upside will be tantalizing, but his ceiling will only track with his growth as a passer. So an interesting possibility here if you're the Jets and you sign, let's say, a Kirk Cousins, you draft a Taylor Green in the mid rounds, and then you bring back a Tyrod Taylor or something, and that's sort of your quarterback room. There's something to be said for developing one Taylor Green, MFC. There is something to be said. So shout out to the Taylor Green people in their audience. That's for sure. So if you guys want a Taylor Green, there you go, baby. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm very intrigued by Taylor Green. Yo, home, Seth Rollins, another Iowa legend. That is indeed true. His wrestling school's out there as well. So cheers to Seth friggin' Rollins. Great. Old Yank on the Undertaker. Johnny Boy Roman Reigns. Hell yeah, baby. One's up for our tribal chief, head of the table. I love Roman Reigns. Again, when Roman Reigns eventually retires, and I'm sure that's coming sooner rather than later, unfortunately. It won't be like tomorrow. Obviously, he's going to be in the main event to WrestleMania, but when Roman retires, we're going to look back at the bloodline and his reign of over 1,300 days as world champion as one of the greatest runs in WWE history. Like, he carried the brand, so many intriguing PLEs, which are premium live events. They used to be called pay-per-views. That's going to be one of the greatest wrestling runs of all time. Like the character build, the turning on each other. Oh, man, it was great. Great action there. JD Surf City says, great guest again, guys. I love your feedback. We're gonna have our second Boy Green Espresso Club meeting. That'll be this Saturday. I don't think I've mentioned it a lot, but again, it'll be this Saturday, the 28th. So Saturday the 28th at 8:00, folks. If you are a Boy Green Espresso Club member, okay, you will have a live show just for you out in the audience. So make sure you guys take absolute full advantage of, again, the Boy Green Espresso Club. If you're watching right now, you can hit the upgrade button if you're a Boy Green Coffee Club member. If you're neither member, you're not a member of the Coffee Club or the Espresso Club, you can jump up to the Espresso Club. We do a live show just for you guys. And in those conversations, we had our first one last month. A lot of people brought up the guests that they like or don't like on the show and who they want to see more of. Then it's a very candid conversation. The public can't see it. The Boy Green Coffee Club can't see it. It's only for Espresso Club members. So I hope you guys take full advantage of that live show. It'll be at 8:00. We'll have the Elimination Chamber on in the background, but we'll be answering your questions, comments. I'll be telling you about my recent game show musings, which will be very interesting. So thank you, JD Surf City, for saying that. I want to hear from the people. This show by the people for the people. If you guys like guests, I want to hear it. If you guys don't like guests, I want to hear it. I like listening to your feedback. If you think there's stuff I can improve on, feel free. Let me have it. I'm doing too much of this, too little of this. This is happening. This is happening. I want to hear from you guys. I love doing this show, and it's a real treat. Shout out to the 400 people in the room here on a Wednesday morning, February 25th. Beautiful. We have over 100 of those 400 watching right now on YouTube. Appreciate it, baby. Make sure you guys like the video. That is the free way to contribute and get this Jet show in front of other Jet fans out in the audience. We have 83 likes, but over 100 people in the room. Let's change that, baby. And wait a second here. I think we have a little bit of news hitting the show here. Let me see. Wait for it. We do, baby. We have just surpassed 8,390 subscribers. Let's freaking go, baby. We are less than 10 people away from 8,400 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you guys to the audience. You're the freaking best. I've loved this show's growth, and it's been a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody. Boom! Boom! 8,390 and a handful away from 8,400. Let's keep growing, baby. Appreciate that. Awesome. NY Jets Phantom says AG made a lot of mistakes. Hired Wilkes, picked Justin Fields, can't manage the game, a la timeouts. I thought he got better at that near the end of the season, but yes, those were all mistakes. AG and many more, I'm sure as well. Yeah. Delway Duck says, please don't be mad at me. I just want to address this. No, not at all. People can bring up whatever they want on the show. Not mad at anybody. No, sir. Macho says, don't blame him for not calling plays. Blame him for hiring a bad DC. I thought I've used this phraseology this offseason. Right church, wrong pew. That, to get a veteran defensive play caller made sense on the surface, but hired the wrong guy. Yeah, plain and simple. NY Jets Phantom dancing on the sideline and lost. Yes, we still have that. We still have that clip. I still love that moment. Hey, I've got the one of me talking about me reacting to the oh my god, this is unbelievable. So we had that happen. So I'm not ashamed of it. That was a cool moment. I'll always remember that. So I wish it would have unfortunately come with better circumstances, of course, and then I would have felt even better about it. But that's neither here nor there as well. Delray Doc, love you, BG. You're a great commentator, wonderful knowledge. You make sense. Thank you, Delray Doc. I try to make it seem like I do. That's for sure. I absolutely try to. It doesn't always happen. That's up for debate. Envelope, shape the stories how you want, BG. See, there you go. I'm a storyteller. I'm just making things up and guiding them the way that I want. That's the way I see it. But I try to shoot you guys straight. But apparently sometimes not. Dave Brigga says, time for Mr. Superpower to put up. We'll see. Hey, this is why I say I love that AG's calling plays. If it fails, he's got no one to blame but himself. He called his own number. Okay. But if it works, a lot of Jet fans are going to have to bend the knee and say, I'm sorry, AG. I'm sorry, baby. That's my fault. But let's see what happens. Again, it's all on him. And I think that's good. It should be all on him. That's what I would do if I was in his position. For sure. Philium, AG's continued arrogance will make him a target for more harsh criticism than would already come with the job, especially in New York. If he doesn't deliver, he will be run out of town by the trade deadline. I'd be surprised if, no matter what happens, but again, if you're 0-8, I guess anything can happen. I would say I'd be surprised if Woody Johnson fires Aaron Glenn midseason. Now, again, like I just said, if somehow 0-8 happens, maybe anything is possible. But he had never fired a head coach midseason until Robert Saleh, and that seems like a clear and obvious mistake. So I'd be surprised. But I will tell you this on the arrogance part. I thought this was my takeaway when I watched the press conference. And I came up with my own takeaways and did a show before I saw how anyone else perceived it. Rich Cimini, Connor Hughes, anybody. This is just my take. When I saw AG at the podium yesterday, my first takeaway was, wow, that was a different AG. The tone was different. The I don't want to say the confidence was down because the confidence is in your own head. That's a perception thing. The arrogance was down. He didn't seem to have bluster. He heard questions. He listened to questions. He responded to questions. He answered questions. There was no, why would you ask that? There was none of that kind of energy. So my observation coming off of yesterday was a good choice. Whether that was subconscious by AG or purposeful, right move. Turn down the heat. Turn down the heat. You start winning and you want to start doing stuff, so be it. But right now, turn down that heat if you're AG. And I thought he did yesterday, to be candid. So yes. Shout out to Tejas Gordon here. Boy Green Tea Club. Keep up the great work, buddy. Thank you for watching on Twitter. Which is a reminder, by the way, if you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, appreciate it. Thank you guys, no matter how you consume the show. That means a lot. Thank you. If you do normally watch on Twitter, I still would appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. It's youtube.com/@BoyGreen25. BoyGreen 25. Help support the show. That's the main way I make I butter my bread is here on the YouTube. So I'd appreciate it. Like I said, we're only a couple subscribers away from 8,400. So help us get there, baby, for sure. Mark Sacchetti, great guest today, BG. Thank you. Yeah, we'll have Sam back for sure. I love Sam. We had him on, a long time ago. I'm very appreciative to have Sam on the show. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, so I thought we saw a different version of AG. I did. We'll go back to the phone lines here in just a second. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any more comments. Hep says he's still having trouble getting on Espresso. Again, one possibility that I've heard for some people that are having trouble getting on the Espresso Club, which again is our second YouTube membership level, is canceling your Boy Green Coffee Club membership. So cancel it. And then click the link down in the YouTube description down below. It says join the Boy Green Coffee Club or Espresso Club here. And then on the left side of your YouTube screen, you should see Coffee Club and Espresso Club. And I would do it from your computer if I were you, because sometimes on these stupid apps, they charge you more money, and that doesn't give me any more money. You're just lighting that money on fire. So again, these prices on the screen, Coffee Club for you guys in the audience should be $2.99. Espresso Club should be $5.99. And Hep, I could try to, walk you through it. If you're on a computer later, you could try to text or call me, and I'll try to see if I can help you guys figure that out. Dave Brigger says, Paul, we're not bending the knee to anyone. He owes us big time. Okay, let's see him deliver. Maybe no bending of the knee. So we'll see what happens. Shout out to Lou B, Super Jet fan. Go Jets. Let's go back to the phone lines here. We've got Jets content extraordinaire, a guy that has the lettuce flowing. That is one of the best. Jets worldwide. Johnny Boy joined us here on the program. Johnny?
BG, good morning, brother. How you holding up, man?
Well, thank you. First and foremost, appreciate you.
Hey, great guest, bro. The dude gave a lot of informative things to us today. So just the way they figure stuff out, it's pretty incredible, man. But I called in really quickly because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Mougey.
Yes.
Him talking, right? Yo, what was your thoughts when they asked him about Fields? Like, do you think Fields really does stay here with us?
I'll tell you this. A couple weeks ago, I haven't mentioned this on this show yet, but I mentioned on Boy Green Meets Woody. Woody totally disagreed. He thought he was stupid. I'm like, okay. But a couple weeks ago, like it may have been last Friday. What's today? Wednesday. So it's like 5 days ago, whatever the math is. On Friday, Tom Pelissero joined the Rich Eisen show, and he was asked about the quarterback carousel, and he said, Kirk Cousins has to be this. Kyler Murray has to be this. And then he gets to Justin Fields, and he says, hey, Rich, Justin Fields does not have a trigger date in his contract, so the Jets basically can do whatever they want with him. And what does that mean? So for Kirk Cousins, it was announced yesterday that there's a trigger date. So they're going to cut him. The Falcons announced, Ian Cunningham, the general manager of the Falcons, said, we're going to cut Kirk Cousins on the first day of the new league year. That is before the trigger date where he would be owed more money. So they're cutting him. Kyler Murray, there's a trigger date on the third or fifth day of the new league year. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they have to make a decision before that date or he's owed even more money. They're probably going to have to cut him. So Tua, oh boy, there's a trigger date. They're going to owe him more money. So they're going to trade him or cut him by a certain point. Justin Fields is owed the money he's owed. So if they cut him today on the 25th or they cut him on April 25th, June 25th, it doesn't matter. It's all the same cap ramifications. So what does that mean? For the Jets, you can hold on to Justin Fields as long as you want. You can hold on to him as a backup plan if you don't get anybody. That would be wild. I imagine they're going to get somebody. Could you trade Justin Fields? And again, trade him for what? I have no idea. The game of musical chairs, right? If anyone's ever played musical chairs, right? The music's playing, everyone's running around in a circle. A seat gets removed every time, and someone goes to say, I'm out. Okay, who's out when we're playing the quarterback game at Carousel for agency? And they're like, damn, we don't have anybody. The Jets are like, Mougey's like, well, I got somebody for you. Does that happen? I don't know. With no trigger date, they're in no rush to do it. So I am curious to see if something like my ears perked up when I was listening to Mougey press conference. He said, we don't have a trigger date for Justin. I was just like, that's an interesting thing to just say and volunteer out there. And I just went noted. I haven't written a piece about it yet for Heavy, but I think that's like a little bit of a message to Justin. If you just thought you were getting cut yesterday, well, maybe not, pal, because they control his rights. And Connor Hughes asked a follow-up later in the press conference, like, hey, don't you feel like you like sort of owe it to him of like, hey man, like, if he's clearly not going to be the starter here, don't you like owe it to him to let him go? And Darren totally said no. Like basically, and how I interpret it, this isn't a charity, man. I don't just do things to help people out. Like that's not what this is about. It's about doing what's best for the team. So yes, my ears did perk up when that happened.
Yeah, it was it was interesting that it didn't get a lot of more buzz out
Yeah,
there,
right.
right? Because I was like, holy crap, if they keep this dude, like, I mean, I don't even know how to defend it because I can't, there isn't. He was just that bad last year.
Yeah,
And I
terrible.
mean, maybe Frank could do something as a backup potentially, right? I mean, I don't think that steers them away from still getting a veteran QB. I mean, now with the whole Cousins situation, but does Cousins wants to come over here, right? Like, I don't know. Um, it's intriguing. And if I'm being honest with you, man, Mougey sounded a lot more confident up there than he did in the years past. And, I mean, he still said his whole, like, oh, I understand the question, right? Like every single time. So it'll be intriguing. Do you know what the cap burden is going to be if we end up cutting him prior to, I think, was it the June 1st?
Yes. So we only save $1 million, as someone pointed out here in the chat. Yeah, there you go, GD Surf City. So if the Jets do a pre-June 1, if they just cut him, so let me rephrase this because some people may not know. So I want to make sure I'm always educating. So you are allowed, every NFL team is allowed a maximum. You don't have to do this, but you're allowed a maximum of 2 post-June 1 designations, which means 2 players on the team that you cut, you could choose to split their cap hit. So you take some of the dead cap now, some of the dead cap later. And when you do that, you could save like $8-9 million on Justin Fields' contract, which could give you more money. Now, that money you don't get till after June 1, which means it's normally rollover money. The Jets a couple years ago in the summer got Morgan Moses. He was surprisingly released late. That was a surprise free agent they added. They had the money to be able to do that. So you wouldn't get that money till June, but you could save a little bit of money if you chose to do a post-June 1 designation. The Jets have plenty of money, so I imagine they won't do that, but who knows? The Aaron Rodgers thing, I thought for sure they're going to eat it all at once and they split it. So we'll see what they decide to do here in the future. But pre-June 1, you'd save $1 million. Post-June 1, you save around $10 million, if that's what they want to do. So yeah, that is the cap situation the Jets have at their disposal.
You think he could potentially be any type of trade bait? Like if there is getting anything from him, is it a possibility?
I think it's a bag of Doritos, to be honest with you. But to be honest, if I'm the Jets and I either save a bag of Doritos of any money whatsoever as opposed to cutting him, or I get a 6th or 7th round pick, to me, that's better than nothing. So yes, I think it is possible. I've gotten a lot of heat every time I brought that up. Like, Paul, you're an idiot. That doesn't make any sense. Who's trade for Justin Fields? He sucks, blah, 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 blah. He was nearly a Pro Bowler, folks. He could have been a Pro Bowler. Okay. So he could have been. And now he wasn't. He declined the invite, but he could have been. And we could have traded Pro Bowl quarterback Justin Fields somewhere. It would have been crazy to forever have that on the ledger that our last Pro Bowl quarterback was Justin Fields before people in the back, which would have been nuts. I think Brett Favre was our last one back in 2008. So that would have been wild. But the point is that, yes, I think the Jets are going to hold on to him. They're going to make sure that they get their quarterback situation figured out and they can hold on to Justin Fields. They have plenty of roster space, plenty of money. Like, there's no rush to do it. But again, I said it live. Again, Woody said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. My ears didn't perk up at all. That meant nothing to me. And then mine perked up. So we'll see if it ends up meaning anything.
100%. All right, BG, man. Yeah, great guest today, man. And keep up the work, bro. You keep killing it, man. So that was awesome. But yeah, it'll be intriguing to see that. And I mean, look, and I'm going to say this with AG. I know people are not going to like it.
Yeah.
If you're not confident in yourself, who else is going to be confident? And for him to say what he said, I get it. People are not going to like, he's just putting another target on his back, I guess, right? Making it a lot more easier. But to me, that just showed me that he is like, if I'm going to believe in myself and nobody else wants to believe on me, I don't need that. I'm good. I'm my guy. Give me all the ammunition. And then once I show you guys what I'm potentially able to do, right, and have a better year, you win, it cures everything. So I just say that, man. Look, I like what AG said. I think AG's press conference this time around was a lot more different, and he wasn't as like arrogant as people were in the past.
Right.
I personally like that. I think he should be, right? But that's just my take in regards to my opinion. But he's just got to win. Once he wins, it cures everything, man. So
100%. Thanks, Johnny. There he is, Johnny Boy of Jets Worldwide, joining us here on the show. I let me make this clear. I guess if that wasn't clear with what I was just saying about Justin Fields, I think there is very little chance that he is on the Jets roster when we actually get to the meat and potatoes. And when I say meat and potatoes, I mean when we are lining up for OTAs and we'll just call it OTAs, the voluntary portion of the offseason in April. I do not believe Justin Fields will be on this roster. I do not. I believe they will either cut him at a later date once they have their quarterback situation secure. Because, again, it's no cap difference for the Jets. So they can hold on to him, and let's say they sign Kirk Cousins and they draft this guy, and they're like, oh, yeah, we're good. Thanks, Justin. See ya. Boop. And cut him and let him go figure out what he wants to do. That's the most likely scenario. That he just gets cut later, not anywhere in the near future. In near future, I say like the next month. Like they wait till they have their situation figured out. But yeah, maybe there is an outside chance you could get anything of nature. Can you move up around? Could you get Justin Fields at a 7th for a 6th or something? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. So if you're the Jets, you owe it yourself to try. But yes, my ears did perk up when that came up. I want to thank everybody for joining us on the show. This was super fun. And thank you to all our additional bonus NFL Combine coverage. We'll have some more. Like I said, we'll be live again at 11 o'clock with Lindsay Rhodes, formerly of the NFL Network. She'll be coming up at 11 o'clock. Paul, when do the quarterbacks throw? NY Jets fandom question for the Combine. The big day is Saturday, folks. That starts at 1 o'clock. The weekday Combine events, Thursday, Friday, they start at 3 o'clock. Weekend, Saturday, Sunday, will be 1 o'clock. The big show is on Saturday. That is where the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receiver all participate. So the quarterbacks will throw on Saturday, which I'm going to be glued to my television. I do have a Boy Green Meets Woody episode on Thursday, but besides where I'll miss a little bit of the start of the Combine because I'll be doing the Woody show with James. But besides that, I will be glued into the NFL Combine coverage and try to give you guys all the latest that we can. They have a lot of great information. So, of course, NY Jets fandom, and thank you for being such a great member of the channel. Thank you. Yes, that'll be coming up on Saturday with the drill starting or the participation, whatever you want to call it. The on-field stuff will start at 1 o'clock on Saturday, NFL Network, for all of that. Oh, yeah, and let me just answer a couple more questions here before we finish up. FSOD to God36 said, keep Fields and use him like a Brad Smith. I would love that, quite frankly. Again, the money is owed how the money is owed, so I would love to do that. I just don't know if Justin Fields is going to be willing to do that. You know, I know Taylor Sterling is in our audience, and he does not like how that was reported on, where Rich Cimini implied that Justin Fields was hesitant to do that sort of role last year for the Jets. I don't know what the truth is. Only AG knows what the truth is. But I will tell you, we didn't see Justin Fields used in a Wildcat package. So, and they had nothing to lose, and they didn't do it last year. So if he'd be willing to do it, like if you had a Kirk Cousins and Justin Fields was this weird Wildcat guy you used on some random plays, that would make sense. But we'll see if that's something Justin Fields would be open to and the Jets would be open to. We will see. Well, everybody, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We have over 500 people in the room, which I'm very humbled by. If you could do me a solid, as you guys are leaving, like the video if you're watching live. Even if you're watching after the fact, pump up those likes, baby. That's how this Jet show gets in front of other Jet fans. It helps the algorithm. YouTube's like, wow, a lot of people like this video. I should give this to other Jet fans out in the audience. And that's how we spread the love, baby. A huge shout out to Sam Bruchhaus of Sumer Sports, former college football player, for joining us here on the program. That was a lot of fun. And yes, like I said, we're a handful of subscribers away from 8,400. Unbelievable. And we'll be back, like I said, at 11 o'clock this morning with Lindsay Rhodes. And if you are a Survivor fan, okay, the CBS reality show, season 50. Can you believe that this show started 26 years ago, excuse me. And now they're on season 50. The highly anticipated Survivor, a 3-hour debut tonight from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And at around 11:05, we will have a Survivor finale recap. The only really non-Jets thing I do on this show is that Survivor recap show. So if any Survivor fans are out there, late night activity, we'll be on at like 11:05 tonight. So many podcasts, so many things to do. We'll have some of that for you. So get in with us. We'll do a Survivor fantasy draft and have a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys can join us tonight. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you in a little bit. Take care.